The time right now is 11 minutes before the top of the hour.
And we're talking about a young man named Nathaniel Williams who is sentenced to death, is sentenced to die today by lethal injection. And we are petitioning and putting out a call of action for all of you guys in your cars, on your way to work, at home listening, to send a tweet to the governor of Alabama, #SaveNate, to help him get a stay so that we could go through his files and really give him a proper hearing, because there has been an appeal in the case. Someone has come forward and said that they are, in fact, the lone gunman. Nate was not involved. There are eyewitnesses, and he is still sentenced to death, which is supposed to take place this evening.
All right, y'all. So here's a voicemail from a former Birmingham police officer. Good morning. Here we go.
If you don't know anything about the case, then don't talk about it, because they were inside an abandoned house when these officers were shot. So I don't see how there could have been any witnesses. I'm a retired police officer. I was working that day that this happened. So don't say that Nathaniel Woods is innocent, because he's not. He was a part of this, and they planned to kill police officers. Even though he did not pull the trigger, he was still a part of that crime. They killed 3 police officers. And if these police officers were doing something that was not lawful or they were low down, then let God handle that. But it was not their choice to be. They are not the judge, the jury, and the prosecutor. That I just do not feel that it's right for people to get here on this radio and say that this man do not deserve to die. I look at it like this. Had it been me out there, I would have wanted my children to do whatever it was to do to avenge what happened to me. I worked that day. I worked that crime that day. I worked homicide. I know what happened. So if you don't know the inside story, then please don't speak about it, because no one knows what happened really, the inside of what happened.
Okay, now that's valid. That is really, really, really valid.
It's valid, but I guess for me, how do we decide on one end that these men did not deserve to lose their lives, but then we take someone else's life? Not saying that if you are involved, that you are required to seek some kind of punishment for what you did. But why are we now the judge and jury that says that this man deserves to die?
It's the Rickey Smiley Morning Show.
All right, y'all, Rickey Smiley Morning Show. 2 minutes before the top of the hour, y'all. We're talking about the case.
We're talking about this case. You see it. It's all over the news right now. There's a man named Nathaniel Woods who is set to die this evening by lethal injection in the state of Alabama, who has remained his innocence, claiming that he has nothing to do with this crime, and he is still set to die. And we are trying to help him get a stay.
Right. So former Birmingham police officer called in and said that in the defense of the Birmingham Police Department was saying that he was a part of it, and was involved in it, and I'm just saying, I'm not taking no side. I'm just stating what she said, that if you're with if he was an accomplice, even though he did not pull the trigger,
state law.
It's state law that like let's say if you and your friend go to try to murder somebody and then he murder your friend, you get charged for his murder.
Right. But the question is, what is the charge? Is the charge, does it mean that he actually deserves to get sentenced to death? Right. Obviously, there's some punishment necessary, but it's death.
So we got Shaun King on the. Shaun, good morning.
Hey, good morning, you all. Glad to talk with you and glad to talk about this case.
Man, Shaun, come on. What do you think, man? First of all, thank you for joining us at short notice. I really appreciate you, bruh.
No, I'm glad to be on here. I have to correct several things that the person who called in said. If that person is a current officer or a retired officer, here's the thing. When police officers are killed, police officers are always going to take the side of the families and the victims. But there are actual facts about this case that she got wrong. Her last words on the call was, "We don't really know what happened." That was her final sentence when she called in. We don't really know what happened. We do kind of know what happened. Police officers barged into a house. It was a drug house, and there were 2 men in the house, Carrie Spencer and Nate Woods. When they barged into the house, Rickey, the moment they barged in, they sprayed Nate right in his face with pepper spray. Nate then ran crazily through the house and ran out the back window of the bathroom, ran across the street, and sat on the front porch where he never left. While he ran out of the house, his friend, Kerry Spencer, who is in prison on death row right now, shot and killed a police officer. When other police officers heard that, they came running in, and he shot and killed 2 more police officers. Nate wasn't even in the house when that happened. Kerry testified in his trial. Kerry testified in Nate's trial. And Kerry has said to this very day, he was on CNN last night, from death row, Kerry himself, that Nate had nothing to do with the shooting. Nate did not know the shooting was going to happen. It was not planned. The police came to the house, Rickey, with a misdemeanor arrest warrant for an unpaid ticket. You want me to believe that Nate so badly wanted to avoid a misdemeanor that he orchestrated 3 police officers being killed. Nate had never been violent a day in his life, never touched those guns, never said, let's shoot police. Here's what they did. This is how foolish and ridiculous this case was. They literally went and found a Dr. Dre song that Nate liked that says something bad about police to say that shows us that Nate had a hate for police.
Wow.
Come on. The case is so ridiculous. I don't think that I would hope that in 2020 that Nate would not be convicted for this. But in 2004, which doesn't sound like it's that long ago, but it's 16 years ago, 2004, you have 3 white police officers killed in Birmingham, which at that point in time was the largest number of white people ever killed in one shooting in the history of Birmingham. They were going to have blood. And here's the thing. They could have just convicted Kerry and sentenced Kerry to death. I'm against the death penalty in general, but Kerry committed the crime. He's always owned it, never denied it, always admitted it. That's on his soul. Kerry wrote a letter yesterday to saying that to him, Nate didn't even actually deserve to be charged. He wasn't an accomplice. There is no crime at all that Nate committed. It's awful that Nate was there, but from my perspective, Nate was actually a victim. Like, he did not want this to happen. He has always regretted that it happened. He had nothing to do with it. Anybody saying otherwise is lying. Wow. There's no evidence. Nobody's ever testified that Nate helped plan it. They made that up. The shooting wasn't even planned. When the police barged into the house, it shocked the hell out of Kerry, who started shooting almost right away.
Right.
And this was not, it's awful. It's horrible. I feel awful for the families of the victims, period. But you can't hold Nate responsible for something he didn't do. And I'll close with this. They offered Nate a plea deal, which shows you back in the day that they didn't actually think that Nate, if you thought Nate actually orchestrated these killings, there'd be no plea deal.
Yep.
They offered Nate a plea deal for 20 years. Nate's attorneys told him that means he'd be released in 4 years. But Nate's attorneys told him not to take it. They thought they could actually get him off completely. And instead of getting him off completely, they convicted him of capital murder. There's actually no crime that Nate committed that day. If you are in the vicinity of a crime, that's not an accomplice. No one testified that Nate strategized or planned that. That's a complete concoction of their imagination just to try to convict this man. And here's what I know about the officer who called in. Black folk will work against black folk in every case like this. You go all the way back to the plantation, and there's always somebody who will say that we deserve every bit of punishment and horror that comes our way. For her to say that Nate deserves death for just being in the house, it's bogus. In fact, in most states, you couldn't even convict somebody for capital murder if they were just there. Normally, in most states, they actually have to have pulled the trigger or had the weapon. There are other crimes you could convict them of. And they shouldn't even be in jail. And that they are about to execute this man, I think, is one of the most grisly, unjust things I've witnessed in my entire life. He's a sweet soul. He's just a regular dude. His sister, who's there in Birmingham, they're in Alabama now, trying to stop his execution. She's been fighting for him her whole life.
Wow. And
his family's devastated. To me, it's a modern day lynching.
Yeah.
Well, Shaun, let everybody know how you could be reached.
Well, people can follow me on social media, but what I really want people to do today, if they can, go to SaveNate.com. And here's what I encourage everybody to do. And I would say this for any case I ever advocate for. Google it yourself. But you can go to SaveNate.com. We post all the court files, all the transcripts. Look at the evidence yourself. They're about to execute a man that does not deserve it. It's outrageous.
All right, y'all. Shaun King. Hey, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, take care now.
All right, y'all. More Rick's Smiley Morning Show coming up.